Hi there. I couldn't remember whether or not we actually did the Flash component. So what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and we're just going to go through the steps to install the Flash messaging component. Just in case you don't know, Flash messaging is basically a pattern that we use in order to help users understand when they've made mistakes or that they actually have successes. It basically gives us a way to provide them some sort of information to let them know that the current action they committed worked or didn't work, or what the problem was with that in a nice human readable format. Because a lot of the messages, sorry, a lot of the errors that we get, they're obviously not human readable. They contain stack trace, so on and so forth. So we need to format in the way that they understand, because stack trace is really no information to them, and a lot of times too, stack trace is private, and we want to keep that kind of information from their hands to keep it secure. So in order to do that, we're going to use a Flash messaging system, but most frameworks actually wind up rolling a Flash messaging system as a part of them, but because we're kind of building our framework, we're going to actually need to implement a Flash messaging system on our own. And so the way we'll do that is we're going to use Express Sessions, Cookie Parser, and Connect Flash modules, and that's totally okay. But it's important to understand that we're going to have to set all these up. So the reason why we have to use sessions and cookies is because our browsers are stateless. So when we go from request to request, any information we set in a request does not get carried over to the next request. So we can't guarantee, there's no way that we'll actually have any local values or anything like that in the next request for the message unless we're rendering. If we're rendering from the controller, then we'll have those messages. But if we're doing a redirect, they get lost, like they're gone on the second the request loads. So what we can do is use sessions or cookies to actually store any Flash messages that we have, and then those will get carried from request to request because the server is actually distributing the information, or local storage is storing the information, or not local storage, but their client storage is storing the information. So we're going to add in our 3 modules that we need. So obviously we're going to need to go into the terminal to do that. So I'm going to just load up a terminal here right now. This is not what we want, so I'm just going to Control C, Command K, and we're going to install them. So we're going to do npm install, and we're just going to install all 3 of them in one go. So we're going to install Express Session, Cookie Parser, and Connect Flash. And you'll notice the space between each one of these. The space represents that this is being installed. It's like a list. It's a list of things to install. All right, so when I'm ready, I just hit enter. It's going to go through, download all the actual modules, and then install them for us, and then add them to our package .json file. So now that we have all of those installed, now we can go ahead and set up our app. To set up the app, it's not too difficult. We just need to register each of those libraries, those modules, with our application first. So we'll require all 3 of them right now so that we have them. So const cookie parser equals require cookie parser, and then we'll do const session equals require, and that one will be the express session, and then we'll do const flash equals require connect flash. And then so that requires all 3 libraries. So now we have the 3 libraries a part of our application, but now we need to register all 3 with the application. So we'll do app use cookie parser, app.use, sorry, that's a function call, so we need to call that as a function. To register session, it's a little different, so it's a function call, like cookie parser, but it takes a object as an argument, and this will actually set up some of the pieces we need to set up. So we'll give it a secret, and we'll either pull that from our environment, env.secret, or sorry, env.secret, yeah, or just this manual secret I'm going to make up on the spot, boo-raka-cha. There we go. And then we need to give a cookie setting, and the cookie setting takes takes an object literal, and right now we only have the one property that we're going to set, which will be 10,800,000 seconds or milliseconds. Sorry, so that's I think that works out to just under a day or something like that. I could be wrong. And then we're gonna resave true. I mean, basic math would tell us if we're right. And then save uninitialized true. What that basically will do is when the app loads up, if we don't currently have a session in progress, and we go to use the session, it will actually initialize a session and immediately save it for us, and then we'll have that session going forward, which is what we want because the Flash messaging system really isn't based on being logged in or anything like that. We want to make sure the Flash messaging system works even if they don't currently have a session. We'll just create them a session and everything will go from there. We need to register the actual Flash system as well. So here we go. We'll register the Flash system. And then now we're ready to actually register a new middleware. So it takes one of these, an anonymous function. And it takes three arguments, request, response, and next. And then in here we can actually register the pieces we need. So we're going to carry our Flash around with us. So res.locals.flash is going to be equal to res.locals.flash or an empty object. So that way if we have a response communicate, like every time we go through these processes, if we have a response object, it's going to take the response object and assign it back to the response object so we don't get lost between moving from response to response. Then we have res.locals.flash.success, and that's going to be equal to request flash, our module, and any success messages that are currently assigned to it. And then we're going to duplicate that and replace this with error. So now that we've got those, we also need to make sure we call next. That will tell it to move from this module into the next module because that's how app use works. So as it goes through each one of these registered pieces with our request and our response, we want to make sure that it carries on to the next one. Otherwise it will stop here and hang unless we give it a response. So we don't want that, so we're going to make sure we go through and actually continue on. All right. Okay, so the next piece we need to do is actually add in our partial. So we'll create a partial. I'm going to come over here to where it's like assets, controllers, models, routes, so on and so forth. And I'm going to collapse those all down. And under partials, I'm going to create a new file. And I'm just going to call this flash.pug. And then in flash.pug, I'm going to basically check to see if we have a flash. Actually, I don't even need to use the parentheses. And then I'm going to tab in, and I'm going to do .flash, which is a CSS class. And I'm going to say if, whoops, did it again, if flash.success.length, which basically means if there's any actual flash messages, .alert success, which are bootstrap CSS classes. And then if those all exist, I'm going to spit out flash.success. And I'll do a join because if you have multiples, it will wind up actually, you'll wind up with an array back, so I want to make sure that I get them all. So I'll just do a join, and then that will add a new line to each one of them so they get spit out on their own line. And then we also want to do the same thing for the errors. So we're going to do if flash.length, and then again .alert danger, and that's going to be equal to the flash.error.join, oops, not join, /n. There we go. Now we have our flash messaging system. Should make sure I save this file as well. So there's the flash. So now next we want to actually put our flash messages somewhere, and so I'm thinking the best place for them to go is just under our navigation on our page. So I'm going to go over to our main nav, which is also underneath partials. Sorry, not our main nav, our layouts. My apologies. We're going to go to main.pug, And it looks like I've already got it here, but this is what you're basically going to include. Include .partials/flash.plug, and that will come underneath the main nav.pug. And go ahead and save that. Now I can't remember if our application is actually running. It's been a while since I've run it, so I'm going to run nodemon and see if we get a big fat error. And it looks like we got a big fat error. It looks like I'm having an issue with our router in the blogs.js 17. It's telling me that router has already been declared. I have a funny feeling I have some conflicts in here, and that's part of the issue. So I'm going to just go to our routes, because that's where that error would be, under blogs.routes. And yeah, you can see like I've got two massive pieces here. And it looks like I have a conflict because what's happened is I have drafts and published in here, and I don't think we've actually gone through and added drafts or published yet. So I got to make sure I fix this up. So I'm just going to take everything in here that I don't need and clean that up. Definitely looks like I had a conflict from a merge by the looks of it. So let's go back and see. Yeah, everything looks fine now. So I'm going to just open up our browser. Right. Sorry, I've got a second screen open, and of course it wants to open over there. So we'll do this. There we go. And this will be on localhost 4000. Everything looks nice. Go to blogs. Yeah, we're all good. Now these draft and published, with Monday's class, I actually have a published link and a draft link, but we don't actually have those hooked up. So why don't we hook those up now so that they're actually working? So we'll need to add two new routes for those, and they're going to look similar to the index route. They're literally just going to be slash drafts and slash published, and then we're going to just change index out to drafts and the blog controller dot published. Now we're going to also need to make sure that we add those two actions into our actual blogs post. So let's do that now. So we'll go to the blogs controller. And I don't think we have them in here. No, we don't. They look exactly the same as index pretty much. So we can actually just duplicate that guy. Right? And I'm going to call this drafts. And I'm just going to add a tiny filter into our find so that it actually does it through drafts. Oh, no, I'm not actually. No, we're going to edit the blogs model to make this a little simpler. So hold on, let's duplicate this one more time. And this one will be called published. So that way our links actually work now. So there we go. So now if I go over here, it should work. Let's change the title though, because that makes sense, right? So we'll call this drafts. And we'll call this one published, right? Hop over to our browser. Now if I go to published, you can see this says published, but you know it's not filtered the list down at all. And if I go to drafts, this says drafts, and everything's hunky-dory. Okay, now I can't remember if we actually added the helpers to the models. I don't know if we did. You see, I don't know if we actually wrote these out or if this is due to one of my crazy merges. But based on the fact that I think, you know what, I'll explain it as if it was. So what this is called a query helper. Blog schema, which is created from the Mongoose schema, will actually have a few properties and methods available to us. And one of the properties it uses is query. And we can actually add new methods onto query. So there's already some methods there. There's find, find one, update, update one, destroy, destroy one, remove, a whole bunch of different ones. But we can actually add our own. So what this will do is I can actually add a new query called drafts. And what will happen is when we do a query, it will get passed into this function when I call drafts, and I can then actually add, I can do another query on it. So I'm going to actually do a query that says this.where status is draft. So this where basically will return all documents that contain the status of draft. And then I'm sure you can guess what published will do. Obviously return all documents that have the status of published. So now I can actually use these. All I have to do is in my blogs controller, I have to run the find, but then right after the find, I can call drafts as a function call. And then after blog.find here, I can call published as a function call and save that. And now if I jump back over to my browser and I refresh, you can see now I only have drafts listed in here. And if I go to published, now I only have published listed in here. So now I have kind of like a simple filtration kind of. I can go back to blogs if I want to see all the archive pieces. So that's kind of cool. I'm hoping we did, yeah, we did edit and we got it working, and we did destroy and we got it working, I believe. Let's see. Delete, yeah. Oh yeah, no, we did this last week for sure. Okay, cool. So that leads us up to the best part. Now we're on authentication, because all of this currently is like super public, and you know, it's not really cool that people can just like create blogs and there's no ownership or anything. You'll write like a big blog post and some jerk will come in and delete your blog post, which is not very fair. So what I would like to do is actually make it so that we can kind of authenticate users. And I was going to use Passport to do that. And I don't know, I'm kind of of the mind where I'm happy I didn't, because I definitely learned a lot rolling out bcrypt. But in the same aspect, I feel like maybe I should have just stuck with Passport. But that being said, we're going to roll our own, because the granular nature of it just makes so much sense, and it makes life, it kind of teaches you a lot, which is really cool. You get to kind of learn how exactly the whole authentication process works, which means you'll know a lot when you're done. Okay, so I'm going to stop this video just to make sure that this part worked. I'm going to save this as a separated video, and then I'm going to add the authentication piece in next. Okay, so I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. We're going to add in the next piece here. So we're going to need a new model. The way I'm going to do this is we're actually going to take, instead of creating like a user's model and then adding all that stuff in there, we're going to create an author's model, which will essentially represent our user's model. So to do that, obviously, anytime we create a new resource, there's about 4 different steps that we have to do. The first step is create the model. The second step is to create the controller, and then the third step is usually to create the routes. And then the fourth step is to create whatever views we're going to need. So in order to do that, let's create a model first, like I said. So click on models, right click, choose new file. And this one is going to be called author.js, right? And the pieces in here, we need 3 pieces. We need to require the library, we need to set up a schema, and then we need to export that schema. So we'll do const mongoose and make that equal to require mongoose. And then in here, we're going to have const author schema, and that's going to be equal to a new mongoose dot schema. And then last, we're going to actually export, so we'll do module.exports equals mongoose.model. We'll call it author, and it will represent the author schema. And there we go. So now we have our required library, we have our schema, and we've exported the model. So schema obviously takes an argument. The argument is going to be the actual setup for our schema. You'll remember when we did the blogs that we had to use attribute names that represent basically the columns inside our documents. So we're going to, I think the best ones for this one will be first name. We'll make that equal to that. I like to keep names separated. Sometimes people use just name, but I find that there's often that you want to search by last name, or you want to search just simply by first name, or you want to sort. And when you do just by name, it kind of convolutes everything and makes it difficult. We're also going to add a password because, like I said, we're going to treat our author as a user. And then you'll remember that we had a second argument that could go to the schema object, and that's where you actually set your properties for the schema, and one of the properties we're going to set is timestamps. And what timestamps will do is basically every time we write a new document, it'll immediately add an update and a created at timestamp, which is really makes it nice and easy when you need to go find things. So each of these actually is almost, no, each of these are identical. So I'm going to put my cursors. I'm holding down Command and clicking in each one of these. I think some students said they had to hold down Alt in order to create multiple cursors, and then other students said they held down Control. And the reason why I'm doing that is because all 4 of these have the exact same setup inside. They're all type string, and they are all required. Cool? Cool. So we have password. Now, obviously, if we write a password, it's going to go in as plain text, and we don't want to keep it as plain text, but for now, we'll just keep it that way. The next step we're going to do is create an actual author controller. So let's open up the authors controller. We'll do new file, and we're going to call it authors controller.js, like so. First piece, obviously, we always require the models so that we have it available to us. Require /models/author. There we go. And then next, we're going to add in our actions. Now, we're only going to have two actions altogether. We're going to have the new action, and we're going to have the create action. And that's it. So a view to create so that an author can register as a new author. And that would be where the new comes in, because it will render the new view for us. And then create will actually perform the action of writing to the database. We're not going to do edit and update or destroy right now. These are just the pieces that we're going to use for now. All right, in here we're going to actually render our view. So it'll be res.render authors/new. And that's also going to take the second argument of the locals for us. And in there, we'll set a title, new author. Oops, no things in there. And then for the create part of it, very simple. We're just going to do author.create, right? That it will return a promise, so we'll have it then, and we'll have a catch. In the create part of it, we're just going to pass it the form, and we're going to use the same kind of pattern that we used with the blogs. So it'll be under request.body, but we'll actually namespace everything under author. Then we'll receive back a callback, we'll actually call a callback, so we'll give it the callback. And in the callback, all we're going to do is actually do a redirect. So we'll do a redirect to res.redirect to login. And while we're at it, we can actually add a flash message now so that we can give them a success. So we'll do request.flash success. You are now registered. So now they're a registered user. Under catch, we'll catch the error. And we'll set a request flash for them. In the request, we'll pass it to error. And we'll use some dirty backticks, and we'll do a proper error here. We'll just give them whatever error we actually get. Probably not the most helpful in the world, but it's good enough for us. And then we'll do a redirect to new if they have a problem. And that's it. That's the 2 actions entirely in a nutshell. Not a heck of a lot. Now, we added in these flash messages here. We haven't done that in the blogs controller yet. We should definitely add them into the blogs controller, just because, that's the whole purpose of having the flash messaging system. So I'm going to do that now. We're going to add them to the blogs controller. So let's see, blogs controller. I need to give it 1 second. I just gotta find it. There we go. All right, what I'm going to do, we're only actually adding it to a few of the paths. It looks like we're only adding it to create, update, and delete, which is totally fine. We should technically add it anywhere we've done a request, and there might be a problem. So, for example, if it can't find these things, we should probably return home. Yeah, let's do it properly. It makes sense. Let's do request flash. Error, and we'll just do the error. I'll pass it right directly through. There we go. And then we'll redirect because I mean it just makes sense. We'll redirect directly to home because that's the only page that we have that isn't doing a database call. So if there was a database issue, then it will say that in the error, and we don't wind up, you know, on a constant loop of just errors and wind up into like a Stack Overflow or something like that, because that would suck. So because that's going to be the same for publish and draft, we'll just copy it and just paste it in place. There we go. And I mean, even show. Like, even show will be the same. Yeah. There we go. All four of those will just flash, give the error, and then redirect back to the home page, which I think is perfectly fine. New doesn't need one because at the end of the day, there's no error response here, so we can ignore new. Edit, you know, same kind of idea. We get to the page, I can't find it, so let's paste that in there as well, because that makes sense as well. Now these three, create, update, and destroy, they're going to operate a little differently, so we need to make sure that we have their pieces in. So right now, when we get a success, we redirect to the blogs. We should actually redirect and also have a nice request message. So now under the lesson 5, you can find these pieces. So I'm going to just paste that into there. Sorry, no, that's the wrong spot. Paste that into there. And then the error message will be this. There. So this will be our success message, and then this will be our error message. And obviously we don't want 2 R's. All right. Underneath here, same idea. We'll just do that. The actual redirect, sorry, I do have a redirect for that one. Under new, it's not console error, we'll redirect back to edit, or to new, I mean. Under edit, we'll redirect back to, sorry, under update, we will redirect back to the actual blog post. So let's do that. So your redirect will go to here. There we go. And then this guy here, he still needs the success message. So let's grab the update success message. It's really just the same as the create message, except that we say updated successfully. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I see why. There we go. And then under deleted, same deal. The catch will create a flash message and then redirect for us back to blogs. And the success will have the request message and then redirect back to blogs as well. There, and that's basically it. So what I would recommend doing is just stop the video and copy these out, or if you want, you can even go to lesson 5 because they're already written out in lesson 5. At least the create, update, and destroy ones are written out in lesson 5. All right, the other ones you'll have to stop the video and write them out. I mean, index, drafts, published, show, and edit are literally this same block. All 5 of them. Okay, cool. So now we have those success messages in there. We have them in Authors Controller. I mean, things are just moving along, which is awesome. Now we need the routes, obviously. So let's create some routes. So I'm going to go to routes. Nope, I'm going to go to routes. Right-click, new file, authors.js. We need to require the router, so we'll do that. So const router equals require express. This is exactly the same thing we wrote for the blog one, right? So there we go. We've got our router. We should require the actual controller so that we can create the link up to the controller actions. So there we go. Require ... controllers, and yep, that's the one. There we go. Then we'll create our routes. So router.get. That'll be a /new action, and that's going to point to the authors controller.new, and then we'll do router.post, and that will just go straight to there, and that's going to go to authors controller.create. And then last, we'll export our routes. Module.exports equals router. Now, obviously, we need to go into routes.js. In routes.js, we're going to need to duplicate these guys. This one is going to go to no, too far. Too far. There we go. This will be authors. And this will be authors. And there we go. We now have our connections up to our actual route paths, which is great. So now we should be able to at least navigate to the route path and make sure that we can see it. However, we're missing a view. So let's go ahead and get the view in place first. So under views, we're going to create a new folder called authors. And in the new folder, we only need one view called new.pug. Right? And I'm just going to copy and paste the form in here. And that you can find under lesson 6, obviously, under the author view heading. So once you paste that in there, that'll give you all these paths. As you can see, we're namespacing everything. That's why we did request.body.author, because that's where we're picking that up from. It makes it easier for inserting it. Now you will notice we have a field in here called author password confirmation. We'll have to handle that because our schema doesn't have a password confirmation attribute in it, which will cause it to blow up because it doesn't exist as part of the model. So in order to stop that from happening, we're going to need to create a virtual attribute in order to take care of that, which we will do in a moment. So let's navigate, refresh. Now we don't have a link. We should probably create a link, but for now let's just go to authors. And it cannot get the authors. Let's find out why. Oh, because it wouldn't just go to, because we don't have a route for just authors. We have a route for authors/new. Here we go. There they are. As you can see, we have an issue because we have this wonderful form in here, but we shoved it under new because I made a mistake. So under authors, we're going to create a new file called form.pug. Take that form we copied in here and cut it out and paste it into form.pug, and we'll leave it there. So under new is going to look very much like blog new does, and that's because if we ever decide to create the actual edit page, it will be the same logic that we did for the blogs. So here we go. We got layouts.main.pug, and then we have the content and so on, and so our layout, right? So our layout will wrap this. Now if we jump back to our browser, refresh, now it looks nice and clean, and it's really sharp. We need an authors column though, at least a register login button. Let's go add some, let's add some links. Actually, before we do that, why don't we finish up with our bcrypt stuff, because we can't even save an author yet. So let's do things in the orders we should be doing things. So we're going to need the author model, right? This funny, fancy thing. And we're going to incorporate something called bcrypt. So bcrypt is a popular library that's available in so many programming languages, it's not even funny. Essentially, it lets you create a unidirectional hash from a plain string. So that's basically taking a string, encrypting it, and then making it only go one way. So it's not impossible, but it's improbably not decryptable, so that it can't be decrypted. But it's not impossible, it's just very difficult. Because it's unidirectional, it's a lot harder to hack. As a hacker, usually we'll just have to try pushing passwords against it over and over again, plain text passwords. That's known as a brute force attack, and they're just going to keep trying, right? Over and over and over again to see if it actually breaks it. In order to use bcrypt, we're actually going to have to install it. So to install it, let's kill our server, do an npm install bcrypt. Do that so you can see a little better. Save. That's going to install bcrypt for us. Gives a warning. Just ignore the warning. That's totally fine. Set back up nodemon. And the interesting thing here is bcrypt, we're not going to register in the actual app.js file. Instead, we're going to register it in here with our author. So we're going to put it under here. It's going to go const bcrypt, and that's going to be equal to require bcrypt. And we're going to create something called a salt work factor. And what this will basically do is just tell our application how many times we want to factor to create a salt key. And that's because what happens when you create the password, it takes the password, it adds the salt key to it, and then it hashes the whole thing. And then you get back this crazy password that should be, in theory, almost unsolvable. Like you can't decrypt it. That's the idea. It's very, very improbable to decrypt it. All right, so we're going to create something called Authentication Helpers. And we need to do this for two reasons. So one, we need virtual attribute for password confirmation. Otherwise, the schema, when it goes through and we try to add a new record, it's going to blow up because it's not going to know where to insert password confirmation because we don't have a field. We could add a field, but that's really pointless, and there's no reason to do it. Plus, then we would have to encrypt it as well. And I mean, that's just a lot of effort for no reason. So what we're going to do is we're going to create something called a virtual property. So I'm going to write virtual property. And what the virtual property is essentially one of these with a getter and setter, but won't write to the database. The database doesn't do anything with it. We don't have to worry about it going anywhere into the database. But the model will use it in order to handle any extra properties we give it. So we're gonna add the virtual property. It's very easy to do. It's just author.schema.virtual, and then that's a function call, and you give it the name of the attribute. So we're gonna call it password confirmation, and then we're gonna say how to do, like what to do with this thing. So when somebody tries to access it, we're literally just going to return it back. So if you access it, we'll return it back to you. So whatever its current value is, we'll go back to. So if it's not set, then obviously they're just going to get defined. If they try to set it, we're going to take the value they provide, and then we're going to just assign it to password confirmation. Very simple. So this value here will actually come from our form. When we go to create author schema, it will have a password confirmation field. That will wind up calling the setter. And when the setter gets called, it will go ahead and assign that value to password confirmation for us. Pretty simple, eh? Not too bad at all. All right, so now we're going to need some helper actions. Helper actions. And these are what's going to help us do things like, for example, hash our password before it gets saved into the database. We need to do this at a certain point in the life cycle of our query. So when we call create, that's a query on our model. And as the query is going through at a point in the life cycle, we need to hash the password, preferably before it gets saved, right? So we're going to do something called pre, which allows us to actually inject code within the life cycle, allows us to modify the model in some way, and then pass it back to the life cycle, and then it will continue through and save and do any validation or sanitization or anything like that after that. So we're going to do author schema.pre, and pre is a function. Pre takes two arguments. It takes the point in the life cycle you want to actually call it, so we're going to call it at save. And then it also takes a callback. So the callback, we're going to pass it an argument of next. And what next is basically is it's a function definition that will allow us to continue the life cycle. So the last thing, the very last thing we're going to wind up doing is calling next, because that will continue on with the life cycle. The reason why we're using function and not an arrow function is because we desperately need the context of author schema to be passed, and I don't want to have to bind it. It doesn't make any sense. So if we use function, we don't have to bind author schema, whereas if we use an arrow function, the arrow function will actually assume the current module context, which is not where we want to be. So because we need to use it throughout our thing, we're going to do a const author equals this, and basically store the context of this in a word called author. All right, cool. So next, couple of checks. If not author, is modified, which is like the worst English in the world, but you get the idea. So if author has not been modified, so if the password has not been modified, that's what that means, then return next. So it will just literally return next, which means it will just continue on with the life cycle because we haven't done anything to the password. If author.password does not equal, and this is where our validation is going to come in, author.password confirmation, right? So if those two things are not the same, we're going to throw an error. Throw new error. Your password must match the password confirmation. Cool. Now we're ready to create a salt key. So we use bcrypt for this part. We do bcrypt.gensalt. We tell it how many factors to work with, so it's going to do 10. We pass in a nice anonymous function, which this time we can actually use the arrow syntax. We check for an error. If there's an error, then we're just going to return next error. Otherwise, we're going to hash the password. So bcrypt.hash author.password, the salt key, and a callback function. So this is going to hash the password that we give it using the salt key. In the callback, we're either going to get an error or we're going to get the hash back. Obviously, if we get an error, we're going to return next error. Right? Makes perfect sense. Otherwise, author.password is equal to hash. So overwriting the current password context to be equal to the hash that we got returned. And we call next. And that's it. That whole thing will hash our password. Now the last piece we want is a way to be able to actually check to see if we're authenticated. So this one we're going to say hashes the password using a salt key. And this one is going to authenticate our plain text password against our hashed password. That's the purpose of this next function. So again, it's author schema. This one is called a method helper. So we access .methods.authenticate. So this is a method helper. This is a hook. This is going to be equal to function, once again, because we want to maintain that context, plain password, and then whatever callback gets passed in. So when they call authenticate, they will be able to actually provide a callback. We're going to do bcrypt compare, and it takes 3 arguments. The first argument is the plain password. The second argument is the hash password, which will be stored under this. And then the third argument is a callback that's going to return either an error or whether or not the password's matched. If there's an error, we're just going to return the callback with the error. Otherwise, we're going to call callback, pass null, and is match. What compare will wind up actually putting into here is either the error or is match into this callback piece. This callback here that we're going to be using is what we're going to use to actually pass that back. Now that we're done, we save, everything is cool, and we're actually ready to start adding in some authentication. So one thing to note, if this user logs in and actually creates an author, they're not actually going to wind up with a session yet. There's no way for them to log in yet because we haven't actually gone through that step. But why don't we create a user so we have one? So I'm going to go back over to here. I'm going to refresh just to make sure everything's good. I'm going to create a new user, Sean McKinnon. My email is going to be, hey, this doesn't validate email format. And maybe I'll save that in the thing. And my password's going to be ASDF, and I'm going to click submit. Can't get to login because we don't have a login, but now we do definitely have a user created. This is a user that exists, but there's no way for us to confirm that because I need to log in order to actually confirm that. What I could do, though, is I bet you a bit of money. I can go to Atlas. See if I'm already logged in. No, I'm not. So I'll need to log in with my wonderful address. Log in here. Go to clusters. There's our database. Just want to access the actual database. Maybe I can click on collections. It's loading, retrieving it. There's the authors. So right there. There's Sean McKinnon. There's my email address, and there's my password. So this actually got written. Everything's good. I actually have an author in here that I can access now. Cool. So happy that this form is working. However, now we're ready to actually start adding in some session control, because the session control will be what actually allows us to log in. So a session is a managed period of time keyed to a client interacting with a server. Many servers will generate a session and give it a unique key and assign it to the client that is accessing the server. Every client winds up with their own unique session. Nobody gets two sessions that are the same. That would be absolutely cataclysmic. Sessions are the holy grail for hackers, as they often contain very sensitive information, like whether or not you're logged in, possibly your password details if the person who built the session is an idiot. If those things are there, then you've just given that hacker a whole ton of access and a whole ton of information. Man-in-the-middle attacks make an attempt to possess a session so they can represent a client and their current role and credential status, and then take that session details and just, vandalize your site. Often a server will generate a session object. A session object is like any object with properties and sometimes methods. This object will contain information about the session, as well as giving you access to be able to create new variables or methods on that session object. Often applications will add their own content to a session object because it's a great way to actually maintain information between request states. For example, once a user has signed in, a token will usually be used to write to the session property that you can now use to validate the user, because the token will, fall into some kind of format. All right, so we're going to need routes, because we're actually going to keep sessions like a resource. We're going to treat it like a resource, just like authors and blogs. However, we're not going to store it in a database, though often that is a common practice. They'll actually usually store information about a session, like what keys were generated, and then sometimes they'll store information about the user, like their IP address and stuff like that. So to store the session information, we're going to go to routes. Why am I creating the route for it first? That's really kind of bizarre. All right, whatever. Let's create the route first. Usually we would create the controller action, but that's fine. So we'll do sessions.js, and then this is obviously going to require the router. So express, just like we did just not even 20 minutes ago with authors, or maybe it was more. I have no concept of time. Const session controller is going to equal require. Nope, that's terrible. Dot controllers dot sessions controller, which we don't have yet. Our route's very simple, router.get, and the router.get is going to access login. So that will be how we actually get to the login page, which makes sense, and that will be under sessionscontroller.login. The next one will be a post action. The post action will be to authenticate, so when the user submits their login form, that will actually go to sessionscontroller authenticate. And then last but not least, we'll have router.post logout, and that's because we're actually doing something destructive. So because we're doing something destructive, we're going to have it post to a logout, which means we'll need a form. And that goes to sessionscontroller.logout. Then we need to export those things. Module.exports equals router. There we go. Obviously, we need to add this wonderfulness into the routes.js file. So if we jump over to routes.js, go here, duplicate these wonderful things. Author, session now. Sessions. There we go. So now we have sessions and everything is in place. Now this thing's broken. I guarantee this is broken now. Oh yeah, it's totally broken. That's because we don't have the sessions controller, which we'll need. But we should actually add some links so that we can navigate to these things, and also create a link for actually registering a new author, right? So in order to do that, let's put those under main nav. And we're going to drop them just under drafts here. And I'm just going to copy and paste, and then you can pause and add them in. So you'll be adding in register, login, and then this wonderful form. So you can go ahead and pause and do that. All right, so we're also going to need a sessions view, which will only have one view. Nope, not a file, sorry. A new folder called sessions. And under sessions, there'll be a new file called login dot, not JS, but pug. And again, we're just going to copy and paste the login form. And there we go. So I'm going to put the login form right directly in here because there's no edit operation. Login is the only one using this form, so there's no reason to separate this out into a partial. It might as well just stay where it is. All right, just so everything is not completely breaking, let's go to our sessions controller. So we're going to need to create a new controller, new file called sessions controller.js. And then in here, we're going to need require the author, because the author contains our credentials for logging in. So ./model/author. And then we're going to have 3 controller actions altogether. We're going to have exports.login. And then the other 2 will be authenticate and logout. There we go. Login, very simple, just needs to render the form. So it will just be res.render sessions login. Oh, I made a slight mistake. Under our routes.js file, our sessions, we're actually going to put at the root. So these will get added with our page routes. And then that means we'll only be going to /login, /authenticate, /logout instead of /sessions. Just for a little bit more, I don't know, I just feel like it's a better user experience. All right. Okay, so we have res.render login, and we're going to give it some locals, so title login. All right. If everything is good there, we should have a massive error. So I have a funny feeling it's some tabbing issues. Yeah, indentation, too much indentation. So let's go back to our nav, our main nav. Yeah, you can kind of see it. It's just these guys here are too far over. So we'll tab them up. Now they're in line. All right. Let's make sure that's the case. There we go. Now we've got links. Log out, register, log in. Obviously, this is a train wreck, and we need to fix the logout button. Go to login, all nice and pretty. You can see everything we need to see. But we need to fix this logout button, because this logout button is gross. So let's do that under styles. So open up your styles, assets, style sheets, styles.css, right? And we're going to put it down here. And if you notice, what I did was I called under main nav, I called it nav destroy for the form. All right. Give me 1 second. I actually need to steal the code from another file. Let's go to open recently. I'll steal it from Monday because Monday did it too. Go to Assets, Style Sheets, Styles, and it's these 3 pieces right here. 3 or 4? Yeah, just 3. Actually, we also need the Flash one, so we'll copy it as well. There we go. And then, oh, we already have the Flash one. I should read. There we go. And save that. Now we have the actual display for our form. So if we jump back over to our form and hit refresh, hey, everything looks nice and neat. It even not responds the same way that any of the other links do, which is pretty cool. All right, so this is our login page. So if I click about, I have nothing on about. If I have home, login, that's awesome. But I can't log in yet because we don't actually have any authentication. So we need to add the authentication to our sessions controller. So when the user submits the form, the request is going to get sent to the Authenticate Action in the sessions controller. And our first step is going to be to find the user that they're referencing. So we'll do that by using the find one query. Find one takes an object as an argument, which basically is just a filter. We'll use their email address in order to find them. Once we have them, we're then going to have to run our Authenticate helper that we created under the author model to basically verify that they are the correct user. So we're going to take their plain text password that they passed in, and we're going to make that comparison. And then if everything is good, we're going to return back a match. If we have an error, we'll throw the error. Otherwise, whatever. But we have to keep in mind, too, that isMatch can be a Boolean of true or false, and it isn't an error, right? So we're going to have to handle that as well. So if the credentials wind up matching, we're going to take them off to blogs. Otherwise, we're going to send back an error and redirect them to the login page to try again. Okay, so here's what Authenticate looks like. And this is probably one of the largest actions we've written so far. So first, we're going to find the author. So we'll do author find one and pass in an object. In the object, we're going to give it a key of the attribute we want to look under, and then where we're going to find it. So we're going to find it under request.body.email. Okay. Oh, before we do that, let's just check login pug. Yeah, so it's email and password, so we're fine. Just make sure that we didn't namespace it. This obviously returns a promise, as all queries do in Mongoose. And so when we return back, we're going to get the author, and we're going to pipe that into our block. Otherwise, we're going to get an error, and we're going to handle the error by just doing a request. No, not whatever the hell that was. Request.flash error, some backticks, error. I mean, it's the same one that we've written quite a few times. And then we should redirect. Just a note, make sure you pay attention that this is request and this is res, used for response, and that they are not the same. Otherwise, you'll have errors. All right, cool. So there we go. So now that's our redirect. Otherwise, we need to handle all this stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is try to authenticate. So we're going to take author and we're going to call authenticate on it. And we're going to pass it in the request.body.password, which is the plain text password. And if you remember, we also get the ability to pass in a callback. And the callback will either take an error or the isMatch. If we have an error, we're going to do if error, and we're just going to throw a new error. And what will happen is catch will actually catch it and then display it. So it's pretty awesome. If we have a match, and everything is good, so that's shorthand for if isMatch is equal to true, then we're going to set a session variable. So we access session by just doing request.session. We'll set the session variable of user ID, and we'll make it equal to the author's current ID, which is probably not the best way to do this. We should actually come up with a nice hashed key and put it in there that we can then validate on each request. This is definitely super lazy and probably not the highest amount of security that you should use, but it is kind of fine. Like, sessions are basically oblivious to people unless somebody like hijacks our session. Then we're going to do a, I don't know why I'm going down so far. We're going to do a request.flash Flash. There we go. Give it a success. You are logged in. Cool. And then redirect out of here. Res.redirect blogs. Otherwise, else, we're going to do a flash error. Error. Your credentials do not match. Try again. Res.redirect. We're going back to the login page, sucker. There we go. All right, so now when they get authenticated, we're going to authenticate their password, see if they actually match. If everything is good, we're going to send them off to the blogs page. Otherwise, we're going to send them right back to login. So why don't we see that in action? Fwah. Fwah. There we go. Let's log in. I don't remember what the login was, so now I'm going to need to go over here and copy it. There we go. Wow. Nope, that's definitely not what I wanted to copy. Let's try that again. That's much better. And I think the password was ASDF. Yay, I'm logged in! Now if I click log out, can't log out, so it's going to spin because I don't actually have a logout action. So the logout action is actually quite small, very, very simplistic. Literally all we have to do is get rid of this user ID. Once the user ID is gone, then everything will be fine after that. And we're going to do that by doing request.session.user_ID and set it to null. And then request.flash and make it a success message of, hey, you logged out. You are logged out now. And then we'll redirect right back to home page. Now the thing is that's not going to mean a lot because even though we're actually logged in, it doesn't actually do anything. So we have a user ID session, but we're not restricting the view of anything. We definitely should. But in addition, we should also actually have some helper actions for dealing with logins. Not only to be able to authenticate a controller request action so that when they actually go to access a controller action, whether or not they're authenticated to actually access that action, or if they're in a view, we should be able to actually use conditional logic based on them being authenticated, what they actually see, whether or not they can actually see the blogs link and stuff like that. So kind of like a two-step process. So we're going to put these helpers underneath our app.js file. And I learned last week that it is super, super important that these go above the routes. If they go below the routes, they break. If they go above the routes, everything works fine. So we're going to do Authentication Helpers. And it actually makes sense because the routes are like the final thing that you do. So we should make sure they're there, right? First, we're going to create a function is authenticated. It's going to take a request. And it's basically going to be super simple. It's going to check that the session exists, and it's going to check that there's a user ID. That's literally all it's going to do. We're going to register it, so we're going to do app.use, pass it its wonderful callback action for it to execute. We're going to check to see, or sorry, we're going to assign a function to request is authenticated. It's going to be equal to this function call. And this function call is basically going to go if they are not is authenticated. So we're calling our function actually with the request. Then we're going to do a flash error, make our lives nice and simple, and just do this right here. You are not permitted to do this action. And then we'll redirect for them. So we're going to redirect right from this location, like before we even hit a controller. Or sorry, we're going to be able to use the controller to automatically fire this off, which is kind of nice because otherwise you would have to type out this logic every single time, right? So this just kind of handles it, makes it nice and easy. We're also going to assign to our locals whether or not they're authenticated. by just calling the function. So we get to use the function in 2 places. So it kind of makes sense to just type it out here first. And then remember we have to do next, otherwise we don't pass on to the next piece. So now we can actually edit our main nav to utilize this piece here, because we can actually restrict what they view, which makes sense. So let's open up main-nav.pug. And this blogs piece, they shouldn't be able to access that. So right above the li nav, we're going to do an if is authenticated. And we're going to tab these guys in, like so. And then now they can't actually view this unless they're logged in. And then in here, for register, we're going to do some nice user experience. We're going to say if is authenticated or not authenticated. Then they can't see, sorry, they will be able to see registered and login. And if is authenticated, they will see the logout. So if they're not logged in, they'll see these two. If they're logged in, they'll see this one. I mean, you could move this up to here. That would work as well, and be just basically the same. So it's not really a difference. In fact, why don't we just do that? Because it seems kind of silly to just go through all this extra hassle for no reason. There we go. There, nice. 2 operations, right? Nice and simple. Let's see if that's working. There you go. We have a login page, but we can still see this blog post. Ooh, that's disgusting. And we can register, right? We don't want to be able to see the blog post, right? They shouldn't be able to go to /blogs, right? And hack us and kind of see everything. So to stop that, we're going to have to add some logic into our blogs controller, which will actually prohibit them from being able to access those pieces. But in addition to doing that, instead of just adding the action into there, we should also create an association so they can only see their blog post. You know what, let's do it in 2 steps. Let's do that first step then. Let's go to the blogs controller, there we go. And at the beginning of each one of these, we're going to make the action basically check to see if there is requested. So I'm just putting my cursor on each one of these because I'm going to do them all at the same time, because it's literally the first thing the thing is going to do. Hit enter, and I'm going to call request.is authenticated, like so. And what that's going to do is it's basically going to say, if they're authenticated, then it will continue on with this. Otherwise, it's going to reject it, and they're going to get redirected. So if I jump back over to here, I'm not logged in, and I hit refresh, you are not permitted to do this action now. I can't go to blogs new either, because I'm not permitted to do the action. I also, because I added it to create, update, and destroy, can't take something like Postman and send out a post request to those actions, because again, it will return back you're not permitted to do these actions, which is good. So I need to log in. So now if I log in, I should be able to go see the blogs. And there they are. So there's the blogs. So now I can go to blogs, I can go to new blog, I can go to published, I can go to drafts, I can click edit, and I can click delete, right? So now to log out, I just click log out, and now I'm logged out, and everything's awesome. All right. Almost everything is awesome. I can see every single author's blog post, right? I do want to make it so that I can restrict what the author actually sees, so they can only see their blog post. And this will require us to actually add something called associations to our blogs model. Basically, what we want to do is make it so that an author actually owns a blog post. Currently, the blog posts are just completely available to anybody. If we look under blog, we have nothing in here restricting who actually sees these. We can add another attribute to this that will actually restrict access to an author. So we'll add a new field. It'll be called author. In here, it will have a type. The type will be a mongoose.schema.types object ID. And what object ID is, it's a type that is assigned to all of these automatically. You just don't ever see them. We're actually going to say that this field is equal to an object ID. So you can kind of think of this more like when you create a relationship table inside SQL and you use the ID from the other table to create the association. This is essentially the same idea. So we're going to say it references the author model. And required, yes it is. It is absolutely required. Now we're not going to adjust our form so that you can select an author. Instead, we'll use the currently logged in author in order to actually create the blog post and actually assign them to the blog post. But in order to do that, we have to edit a whole whack of stuff inside our blogs controller. So let's open up the blogs controller. So the first thing is we only want blog posts that are relevant to this author. So in order to do that, we need to pass find an argument. And the argument that we're going to pass find is the filter. We do that by passing in an object, the name of the field that we want to filter by, and what the actual value of it is. So this is where using user ID comes in kind of handy and makes things a little easier. Next, we want to make sure that the blog post, when it comes back, actually contains the author record in it. It will contain the author identification, but in order to get the author record, we have to do something called populate. So we're going to add another piece in here called populate and tell it which field that needs to be populated. And you can actually give it a list of fields. So if you have a bunch of referenced ones, you can just give it a list of the referenced fields. So this will actually populate the author record, and we'll be able to access that under blogs, well, under blog.author, and then dot whatever attribute that we want to access, like first name, last name, email. So under drafts, it's literally going to be the exact same operation. There's no difference between what we do here to there. So we can actually copy this search and put it into drafts, like so. And then right after this piece, we call .populate with author. And save it. And then we're going to do the same thing to publish. There we go. And call .populate. And pass it author. So all three of those are now taken care of. We will only actually see blog posts that the author has created. And we can kind of test this, because if we come back over here, we log in, hit submit. I can currently still see the blog post even though I don't have access to these blog posts. That's odd. That's very odd. I don't have access to those blog posts. I wonder why I can see them. I definitely shouldn't be able to. I think maybe I've missed a piece. No, that's correct. Right. So find by the request session user. Oh, you see what I've done here? See how I have user and then ID like that? That's where my issue is. It needs to be a capital ID. Very, very specific. That's why. Go ahead and save that. Jump back over. We're logged out, so let's log back in. There we go, and now we can't see anything because we don't actually have anything published by this particular blog author. Now, before we actually go ahead and create one, we need to make sure that we adjust create so that we can actually see that. But before we do that, we're going to need to fix a couple more of these. So show, we might as well fix show as well. Show is a little different. Right now we have the request params ID in order to search. Instead, we're going to search by one. Or sorry, find one. Not search by one. Find one. This will now take an object, and it will be underscore ID is equal to request.params.id, and then author will be the request.session.user ID. And there we go. So this will restrict it so that only the blog post with that identifier and that author currently owns can be shown, which is perfectly fine. The next one for new New will actually stay the way it is. Nothing changes except for that we authenticate. That's the only difference there. However, create changes a little bit. So create requires actually it requires a weird kind of step. So above blog, what we need to do is actually attach to the request body the user session ID. So we're going to do that by doing request.body.blog.author is going to be equal to the request.session.user ID. And that will add that value in there, and then that will get passed into here, and it will get written, and everything will be hunky-dory. All right, edit we already finished. Oh, no, we didn't finish edit. So in edit, it's identical to the way we're doing it in show. So why don't we just do ourselves a favor? We'll just grab this block, copy it, come down here, and replace it. There we go, because they're identical. There's no difference. All right, so for destroy and update, again, it's update 1 is fine. We've got this piece. We just need to add the author piece to this because we only want to allow updating for a logged in author. And then destroy, same deal. So just comma, author, colon, request.body request.session user ID. And there we go. And that's it. That's our entire controller actually set up. So let's navigate back over to our browser. Refresh, probably logged out. Let's log in. ASDF. There we go. Need to create a new blog. New blog. My super awesome first blog. Ooh, rakacha. Let's make it published. Hit submit. There you go. Now under my archive, I have that, and I should be able to go to published. Yep, there it is. And I should be able to go to drafts, and it should not appear because it's not a draft. Let's go back to publish. I'm going to click edit, and I'm going to change it to draft. And if I click submit, it should update. Yeah, it's updated, and I can see this in my show. And now I'm going to go to drafts, and there it is. And now I should be able to destroy it. Boom, it's destroyed. Everything is good, and I can still log it. Nice. So that means we learned everything about adding in authentication, creating new models, adding in helpers, and also working on actually creating associations between two documents. Hopefully you were able to follow along with this. Don't forget that on Monday's exam, Thursday is the midterm. Don't forget that you have the midterm on Thursday. It will be open book as usual, and then the quizzes are already open for you to take. You can take them as many times as you want. Once you've taken the quizzes, though, you're going to need to you can actually pay attention to those quizzes because they're going to be the questions on the theory part of the test. So you'll have an hour to do the theory part, and then you'll have 2 hours to do the practical in your groups. Those of you not in groups, you can work on them individually, or I'm even going to allow you to join other people to work on it, but you will have to submit your own version of it. That's all, like your own copy. But yeah, it should be fun. Anyways, yeah, I'll see you on Thursday. Cheers.